Stardate 2523, the Galactic War ends. Us combat-centric androids, once on the razor's edge of the fighting, are now asked to quell rebellions in home and conquered planets. Some move back into hunting for sport, what others would call bounty hunting. There are many variants of Us androids, and this age of peace brings even greater wealth to the already wealthy trade-focused androids. Stardate 2526, after the chaos and destruction of the Galactic War, Fire, a Trinity variant, Us android, Generation 56, decided to embark on the next phase of his expansionist vision. A Trinity variant android has three primary core directives: Directive 1, Trust and Integrity Building. Directive 2, Navigation and Intergalactic Expansion. Directive 3, Technology Acquisition. As this next era of peace takes hold, these diplomatic and expansionist-focused Trinity androids are positioned to dominate the socio-economic hierarchy of Us society, overshadowing less focused androids. Diplomacy being first nature makes these androids shrewd, honest and profitable traders. Fire became very wealthy during the last war by trading ships, ship parts and refined fuel. His previous collections put him into an amazing position to capitalize on the war. He owns a string of planets with abundant ore mining rights, as well as dozens of gas fuel refineries and two major hub starports. Fire was able to position himself into major trade contracts, supplying many high-level Us with ship replacements and refurbishments. Beyond securing a loyal clientele, Fire was able to supply many Us with combat ships during the war. This connection allowed him easy access for parts supply and refueling rights of many combat-oriented androids. It was these experiences that made Fire extravagantly wealthy, as well as awakened his passion in yet-to-be-discovered spaceships, spaceship functionality and interstellar travel. During the war, Fire completed a fair amount of trading with humanoid beings as well on friendly and conquered planets. Always the equal opportunist, he also had some trade interactions and run-ins with mud pirate traders. Ready to exploit this new era of peace, Fire wanted to make the most of it by expanding into all three known factions' territory. To do this he needed like-minded allies. While both Mud and ONI factions were of interest, it was the compilation of his positive experiences that dictated the first territory he should explore were the Mud-controlled galaxies. Fire attempted to visit all the primary Mud shipyards that remained viable after the war, but found it very difficult. With war no longer imminent, many shipyards were shuttered as the demand for shipping capacity dwindled. There were many deals to be had on old freighters and military barges, but it was difficult to find allies. Being so soon after the war, suspicions still abound and many were plainly xenophobic. Ignorance and wartime prejudices still fresh and abundant, Fire found many in the Mud faction would avoid communicating for fear of providing tech secrets to a possible enemy. It became easier to converse with civilian humanoids, and many were won over with Fire's consistently fair dealings. Never being gouged or taken advantage of went a long way in currying favor in some of the Mud strongholds. They were mostly curious and welcoming, but the military-oriented shipyards were not forthcoming. Fire also couldn't get any assistance in the medium or small-level shipyards either. Stardate 2528, after continued denials and avoidance and now greatly discouraged with his interactions in the Mud territory, Fire decided to stop in at a nearby smaller system and prepare to vacate the Mud faction territory. Fire would instead attempt to make inroads with the ONI faction. It just so happened that at this spaceport, while gathering information and taking in as much as he could in talks with a fellow trader, Fire learned of a creative and proficient mechanic named Albert Egris, who previously worked at one of the largest shipyards in the Mud faction. Albert was let go when the local shipyard shuttered after the war. While initially this was hard on Albert, he had since opened a small repair shop in the middle of nowhere that officially only made repairs to smaller spaceships. It however became known that Albert liked to dabble in upgrades. He liked to systematically dissect and then refine internal and external component processes to make these parts better. Occasionally he would fail, but often his experience allowed him to succeed. Since the direction Fire was heading coincided with Albert's shop, he decided to seek him out. Remote was an understatement. If Fire had eyelids to blink, he would have passed by Albert's shop. If not for the proper alignment of the planets, as Fire was passing, a glint of the nearest star off his metal roof caught Fire's light sensors. This may be good to keep prying government eyes from his processes, but his seclusion meant his success was only due to the generosity of many happy customers who returned and spread his good name. One could be forgiven for thinking they were old friends from long ago. After initial pleasantries upon meeting Fire, Albert was taken with his intricately pointed questions about how much ship components worked. Not since his time at the shipyard did Albert talk so much. It wasn't just reliving the glory days. It was like teaching new recruits, but it was so much more than that. Fire was a true spaceship-loving aficionado. Albert also appreciated Fire's input on points where Albert might improve his own process, as well as the ability to peer into previously unknown thought processes related to their tech. Fire was impressed by the almost primitive but highly efficient designs Albert showed him. The two talked until well into the next morning before exhaustion hit Albert, who fell asleep mid-sentence. By conversation's end, Fire had decided to stay and learn from Albert. There were many upon many of conversations between the pair, and at some point, Albert told Fire of a handful of ships that he built from scratch. His only issue, he could not mass-produce and thus compete on price with the bigger shipyards. It was then that Albert shares his, quite impossible to this point, dream of leaving his mark on the shipbuilding world. Albert has an idea of a massive in-scale ship, much larger than anything currently flying. But it wasn't just large. It was reliable, functional, and could truly almost stand against any adversary on its own. With the war no longer driving the Mud faction's procurement of massive war machines, it was unlikely to ever materialize. Feeling encouraged by Fire's acceptance and appreciation, Albert beamed with pride as he shows his new friend the plans for the ship that he tenderly refers to as the Nautilus. Unbeknownst to Albert, Fire had been already contemplating how to use his considerable wealth to further tie himself to Albert as well as grow Albert's and his gains. This ship, this man, this is the missing piece Fire needed. "Can I help you?" Fire flatly asks. Now, months after they first met, this is the first time Albert is at a loss for words. He was so focused on getting to know his new friend he didn't even fathom what financial benefits may await. They didn't know it yet, but this was day one of Albert Egris and Fire officially working as a team. The first ever Mud collaboration and cooperation is born. What starts as AE and Fire ships later expanded and was molded into the overarching Aephia Industries in 2530. It took some time to build their company from scratch, but one of their first invaluable purchases was the shipyards that Albert used to work at. After some of these critical infrastructure components were in place, it allowed for his and Fire's broader vision. Now that they are initially off the ground, Aephia Industries starts to create several impressive ships which Albert ultimately agrees to sell to an undisclosed third party. Rumors point to Calico, however. Neither party has confirmed this, and then Aephia pivots instead to just construction of spaceships based on blueprints already in production by established ship manufacturers. Just like Albert did in his early days, though, the ships created by Aephia were vastly improved. Aephia ships always seemed to be a little faster, more efficient and smoother to maneuver than similar ships created elsewhere. This hallmark of Albert and now Aephia Industries was the prelude to opening of many doors. The shipyard gave Fire multitudes of ships to research and review, but also gave him the clout and open doors into the previously unavailable major shipyards. Their consistent work in conjunction with fair pricing allowed other overworked and understaffed shipyards the ability to complete their contracts on time and mostly within budget. As word of their success got out, Aephia was in turn further propelled into the Mud faction's landscape. After several decades of success, Fire recruited some subordinate androids to open a parts factory and shipyard in Uster territory, as well renewed his desire to push further into ONI-held galaxies. Like a fish to water, Albert seemed to be handcrafted to run a ship manufacturer. It was only logical that Fire left him in charge of Aephia Industries so he could be free to further their interests. Stardate 2552 With 6 part assembly lines that feed into 2 mud and 1 Uster shipyard, Aephia Industries has really started to shine. To date, Fire have not managed to find a like-minded ONI faction member and has only procured several ONI ship variations. With Albert's help, he proceeded to reverse engineer and improve them. He still wanted to find an ONI building expert to help propel a greater understanding of ONI technology and craftsmanship. Most of Aephia Industries' clients to this point are one-off ship captains. They occasionally land a larger multi-ship contract for major traders and other shipyards. It is with these traders that Fire concentrates on getting to know. Launching detailed inquisitions into historical as well as future trade patterns and thought processes, Fire knows one of these traders might lead him to an ONI faction builder at some point. He begins to unwittingly recruit them in this endeavor. Stardate 2563-2598, The Great Emergence. Some major purchases of mining and exploration vessels happened. Rumors of another cataclysm-level discovery abound. While the rumors turned out to be mainly false, it did spark a major rush to discover. Thus began a 3-plus-decade process of expansion and acquisition unlike Aephia Industries had previously seen. 3 shipyards turned into 15, as well as multitudes of parts factories and liquidation of many small shipyards to add and develop Aephia Industries' larger shipyards, including their first ONI-based shipyard. While Fire is not able to find an equal to himself or Albert Egris in the ONI faction yet, he starts to court many young enthusiasts from all factions to build an equal in aggregate. In addition to factories and shipyards, mining and gas rights to many planets and space stations fell into Aephia Industries' portfolio, making them one of the most dominant builders in all 3 factions. The initial goal of total control of all materials required to build every variation of ship in all factions now is complete. So regardless of food, fuel, bullets or booze, Aephia is now the go-to builder and supply for any ship or ship part for every faction. Most major shipbuilders cling to one faction line of ships still, where Aephia will allow you to trade in, pre-order and build from scratch any known blueprinted ship. Stardate 2621, Aephia Industries thrives. Now with thousands of Aephians in command and a serial amassment of mines, refineries, starports, manufacturing and shipyards, Albert Egris, now 147, is nearing life expectancy. While it is believed his consciousness can be uploaded to one of the latest generations of Uster androids, it is Albert's wish to pass away as his ancestors have before him and allow the next generation's legacy to thrive. Respecting his wishes, soon leadership of the day-to-day will be passed to Albert's 2 youngest children, Albert Prometheus Egris Jr. and Funcracker Fire Egris. Both children share Albert's passion for spaceships and seem to have also been bitten by the mechanics bug. To date, Fire can still be found scouring the ONI galaxies looking for another Albert Egris and any other tech he may have missed. It is expected that Prometheus and Funcracker will usher in a new era of modernization and expansion, giving their father's legacy an everlasting shine. Fire will still have a hand in how Aephia Industries progresses, and great things are expected. We cannot wait to see the next chapter.